So welcome. Thank you for coming out. It is good to gather together, and it's a great opportunity to be able to have Nic here and spend some time with him and pick his brain a little bit. It's an exciting journey. There's no question about it. But as we have said before, it's also the season of mixed emotions, right? Because we are also losing a pretty amazing family who are going on to follow the call that God has on their lives as well. And so we don't want to, overlook the significance of that for Mike and Teresa and the family in that as well. So we continue to stand with you, Mike and Teresa, Sarai and Jacob, and just absolutely believing God's absolute best for you guys in this new season. So let's continue to lift them up as we go. So what we thought we might do, Mike and I are probably just going to ask some questions of Nic, and it's very conversational, and we'll see where it kind of goes, and hopefully give you guys some good insight. Nic's not shy of a few words, so if we have to reel him in, we may do that. I think we were having lunch today, and I think half the lunch was spent talking to the guy who owned the business. But it was pretty special actually. Cool. It was very, very cool in that. So anyway, we're going to have a bit of a chat, and then at the end too, we'll just have an opportunity if any questions sort of you might have that we didn't cover off that you want to ask of Nic or ourselves as well. Sound right? Everyone cool with that? Great. I think probably what I'd like to do is maybe start kind of from a little bit back in the beginning, just for you guys to get a bit to know Nic, the family, what their journey has been. So Nic, I guess maybe if you could, maybe not start right at childhood, but go back as far as you like, just recognise that we've only got an hour or 45 minutes together, but maybe talk to us a little bit about your journey, your faith journey, your ministry, your careers, your family, that kind of stuff, just the things that people might want to know about you.
Oh gosh, well, that is a big question. It has been said that I can talk under poured concrete. Being an ex-lawyer and now pastor, you used to get paid by the word when you're in the law, if you know that, if you've ever gotten a legal document written for you, you know that the painful way. But as a pastor, you just speak a lot because you like the sound of your own voice. Present company accepted, of course, mate. But okay, how about this? How about I share Jesus story, then V story, then career story. It's not good and quick. How about that? All right. So the Jesus story began for me when I was 9 years old. My mum and dad who's with the Lord now, and Hannah, where are you going? I'll give you a hug after that song. We actually played at his funeral. So it was a very, very poignant. Can't help but feel coming in with the rain happening and that song. Quite amazing. Because, as he was sick at the end, it was a song that he played a lot, So amazing. But mum and dad were both secular humanist atheists, very broken people, wonderful people, brilliant people, but very broken. We were living in Perth at the time, and they had been separated. They became separated. As a kid, I remember I hated them being together because they were really dreadful together. The only thing I think that I hated more than them being together was them being apart, because they were either very in love or very throwing pots and pans, not just metaphorically. Anyway, mum and dad, they've been separated for quite a while. I don't recall how long. I was a kid, so when you're a kid, time is elastic, Dad had gone off, and he was living with a friend of his. It was long enough that they'd had boyfriends and girlfriends and such, so it was obviously, it was a fair while. And Dad's friend had become a Christian, which, as you know, in Australia is not particularly, common. And certainly not in Perth in the early 80s, it wasn't. And Dad's friend kept saying to him, John, I want you to come to this thing, it's called a church, and it's amazing. And my dad was, if you'll excuse my French, my dad would say, no effing way am I going to come to your silly so on and so forth, church. And anyway, his friend kept on talking to him about it. And Dad eventually said to him, okay, I come one time, then you shut up. You don't talk about God, talk about Jesus, talk about church, nothing. This is the deal. And this man said, okay, you know. Anyway, Dad went to this little church, Church of Christ Church in Subiaco, about a suburb away from where we lived, where my older sister and I lived with my mum. And in fact, my younger sister by then also was born. And anyway, Dad walked into this church, and it was probably a couple hundred folks, but he's, to the day he died, said he almost fell over with shock, because there sitting in the pews was my mum, right? Who had, it's an amazing story. She had been driving past the day before and had pulled up at a set of traffic lights and had looked across, and she had no real words to put around this, but she said, you know, she said, I could tell that they had a sense of community or something that I didn't have. So she did a U-turn, came back, looked down the service times, apparently missed the service she meant to go to because us kids were being ratty, and went to this service. So in a city of Perth at the time, let's call it 700,000 or 800,000 people, two broken atheists who would never go within a mile of a church, same day, same service. Right? Some people would say a coinky dink. I think something else was going on. But anyway, that day, Dad had a revelation of who Jesus was and God's love, and gave his heart to the Lord. The sermon was on Jonah. Apparently I wasn't there. And he realised that he was Jonah. And which is a miracle of its own accord, because Dad was not someone who, he was not I don't know how to say it, but not a flippity gibbet, not someone who'd go here and there. He was a very considered sort of fellow, you know, careful with his words, deliberative in his decision making and so on. So that of its own accord was a miracle. Then he went back to Mum and said, would you take me back? And she said, no way. You know, and it had been dreadful for a long time. Anyway, eventually she did, obviously. And then about 6 months after that, Mum decided to become a follower of Jesus. About 3 months after that, coming to me, I decided to become a follower of Jesus. Because I could see the difference in Mum and Dad's life. They weren't perfect, I'm not saying that. They were changed, not a question. There was a BC and there was an AD, and it was radically different. And so, yeah, my Jesus story began there. And Mum and Dad, you know, they went on, and obviously they were together until he passed 4 years ago. But they went on and they, you know, planted churches. They just mentored about half of the city, and pastors across the city, just extraordinary folks. Some of you met Mum, I think, when she was here. I hope you did. Yeah, so fast forwarding. So if you call that the first chapter of my Jesus story, the second chapter, there's only 2 chapters, don't worry. You guys are thinking, gosh, we're 10 minutes into, you know, the first part of it. No. So by the time I got to university, UWA, kind of, if you don't know it, just think a little bit of a snooty kind of place. I had seen enough Christianity to be a bit jaded, honestly. Not from Mum and Dad, mind you. They were the real deal. I mean, radically generous, amazingly giving, they're the real deal, still are. But I'd seen enough Christian backbiting, Christian backstabbing, meanness, lack of the things that I'm reading about Jesus, you know, as a young guy, and I'm like, I don't see it. And albeit for a lot of young people, me too, that can become a little of a smoke screen. Because lordship is a big thing, right? If Jesus is Lord, as my dad used to say, you know, it was a big saying at the time, if he's Lord at all, he's Lord of all. You know, I know it's a big thing. And so I don't know, I wonder if subconsciously I was pulling back, because I was realising if he's really real and he's sweeping me up and calling me to live according to his ways, it's going to demand sacrifice, probably. But either way, I'd kind of, I'd in a way walked away. Had Jesus as Saviour, perhaps not as Lord, you might say, through first year university. At the end of it, I met this amazing woman, and who was wild and crazy, and she'd also just radically been transformed by Jesus. That is, some of you guys have met her. Her name is Verity Snook at the time. Now she's known as Nic Gilmour. She's my wife, right, 30 years later. And I'll let her, tell you guys her story. It's, oh my gosh, it's an amazing story. She was, in some really heavy, gnarly occult stuff, and God just drew her out of it. You should hear her story. But so she's coming to this lordship understanding in this moment, and we started dating about 3 months after she decided to follow Jesus. And so she started saying to me, well, you're a follower of Jesus. And I'm like, yeah, I am. And she said, oh, I am. And she's devouring the Bible. She's an amazingly quick reader, She'd read the Bible 3 or 4 times already in a couple of months. It was, And she's saying, well, shouldn't we, go to church? And I'm like, I guess we should, And shouldn't we be sacrificially generous? And shouldn't that be, shouldn't we be, it says here, we should be forgiving people. If we don't forgive people, God won't forgive us. And oh, gosh, all right. So, reluctantly, so that was kind of the second part of it. And it's wonderful in a way, because we were young and in love, and God was very kind, and we got married shortly after that. But the second part of my journey, let's call it the Lordship, the adult Nic Lordship thing of following Jesus happened at that time. Jesus' story. Okay. It was a career story. Okay. So I started out on the family cattle and sheep farm down in the southwest of Western Australia. If you've heard of Margaret River in Albany, if you drew a line across and up, it's more or less in there, a place called Kojonup. The farm was called Wannanup. The local Aboriginal people, anything that ends in up means place of. Yeah, so it was the place of the Kodjo and the place of the Wannan. It's like a tree, anyway. And I loved it. And I thought that's what I was going to do. I thought I was going to be a cattle and sheep farmer, wool sheep, beef cattle, and some crops, V's family, on the other hand, they were out from Muck and Booten. I made fun of it before, but out in the middle of nowhere. They were, a cropping family. And my granddad actually even offered me, there was a family block that had been in the family 100 years or so at that point. And there was a block down the road of about 2,000 acres, enough to subsist on as a family. And he said, Nic, stay with me here and work with me on the farm. When I kick the bucket, I'll give you this other block. The family thing will be divided up. And I really thought about it. But the trouble was, at that point, crossing the stories over, I just started dating this amazing blonde-haired, crazy person known as Nic Gilmour now. And I didn't want to be 5 hours away or 4 hours away on a motorbike ride to, away from her. So I went back to university, and kind of in a way, a little bit broke my granddad's heart, I think, looking back. In the end, it wasn't a bad thing, because when he died, the family divided up the land, and it was mum and dad are the only Christians, so it was an ugly thing. A lot to say there on how to do that, actually. We're going to talk about that in the church more, how to do that well, but that's another story for another time. So I went back to university and ended up going through law school, and I did my last 6 months at Sydney, because V also, she's a smart cookie. She's got 4 university degrees. One of them is as a singer. She was a coloratura soprano. If you know, like classical singer, think opera, think stuff that a buck-toothed farmer knows nothing about. And so we moved over to Sydney for her career, and I did my last 6 months at law school in Sydney. I worked for a few firms, and then I landed a job at this the biggest, baddest law firm in Australia, in fact Australasia at the time, and had a short stint there before I had let's say an ethical disagreement with some of the partners and I told them I won't tell you where I told them to put their job, but anyway, I walked out. And so after that, it was sort of hard, because a little heartbroken, my dad was still in the law. He was a lawyer and honoured the Lord and loved the Lord, but there's some professions that I think can be harder to honour the Lord in than others. And so I left the law, and I worked around Sydney as a painter for a while, a house painter, which I love it. I'm sort of a farmer. I'm really just a farmer guy, and the law thing was a stint out in crazy land, and now I'm back to working with my hands, doing stuff I love. And we'd been serving with Christian surfers. If you don't know Christian surfers, think, some of them have heard it whoop out the back, but think like YWAM. If you don't know YWAM, think people will take on hell with a squirt gun, the crazy ones. It's like that. It's really like the surfing little brother of YWAM. It's kind of Christian surfers. And so we've been serving with that locally and just seen amazing things happen. I mean, God really did bring it like a mini renewal going on. I don't use that word lightly. And just so many people come to the Lord and things being planted and amazing stuff. Anyway, around that time, some friends said, Nick, we need what's called a regional coordinator for Christian surfers. And we'd love it if V and you would consider stepping up together to that role. And I remember we were sitting in a cafe, and I looked outside and I pointed up into the sky and I said, I think a pig just flew past. Because I'm not a leader, I'm more of a loner by disposition. And I thought, I can't do that. I don't want to lead people. I love people and all, but I'm not. I don't want to preach. I had to deal with God. I said, God, I'll do anything for you. I'll go to the far end of the world and die. I just never want to speak in front of people. That's my deal, I've lived up to my deal, by the way. Anyway, but so long and short of it was that we started out as regional coordinators for Christian surfers. And I'll fast forward this because I know some of you guys are going to press fast forward. We ended up as national managers together of Christian surfers, and also double timing it as pastors both in Sydney and then in Coffs Harbour, where we last were before we left Australia. And we'd started a Bible college, small, so like I think most full-time students we ever had was 12. With an emphasis on church planting. There's a few churches, and wonderful things come out of that. Again, another story for another time. But we felt God bringing that season to a close in 2013. But at the same time, a friend who had worked with us in Christian surfers many years before that, about 8 or 9 years before, and had gone back to the States, caught up with me. And we happened to be in Boston, which is out in the northeast of the States. And I was finishing my doctoral work and doing my doctoral defence. It was kind of like sitting with these guys today across the table. You sit there and they drill you with questions. It might be like the end of tonight for all I know. But I was... So we're in Boston, and we used to break our trip on the eastern seaboard at the time. Tino wasn't with us, Mo was with us. We used to break our trip in San Diego on the way back to the eastern seaboard of Australia, And he said, Nico, dude, we've been looking for a missions pastor for 5 years as North Coast Cavalry. He said, I think you're the guy. I said, oh yeah, I'm not the guy. He said, Nico, I really think you're the guy. I said, mate, I'm really not the guy. I don't want to be a pastor. I mean, V and I, we were already both pastors, but not as a paid gig. We were freedom fighters. I'm not a mercenary. I'm going to do it for love, not money, you know what I mean? And I don't want to be a pastor. I don't want to be a pastor in a bigger church. Our church is really wonderful, very similar spirit to Goodlife, actually. The scale is different though, I don't want to be a pastor. I don't want to be a pastor in a bigger church. And mate, I don't want to be a pastor in a bigger church in America. It's like my trifecta of dreadful. That's not going to happen, Anyway, he said, I'll tee up a meeting. I want you to have a meeting. And lo and behold, through God, twisting our arm and with a crowbar getting us out of where we were, there in Coffs, we went over to the US, where we have last been serving for about 11 years. We've been there now. And so we've got another 100 seconds to finish out the question. You can say no. You know that. You have your own microphone.
Sorry, what is discussed later?
Okay. He's like, what happened there? You didn't tell me that. So at the beginning of this year, I took some time out in prayer and fasting, which is not my strength. I need you to know, as a pastor, I'm not much of a faster. There's too much to do. I know that's I'm confessing, right? But this is what's going on. There's too much to do. I just get hungry and I just get grumpy. And so, but I felt compelled to do it. And I wanted to wait on the Lord for our 1 year goals, V and I as a family, and our 1,000 day goals, like 2.5 years. This is the thing we do. And so I don't know why I thought this would be a good idea. There's a monastery close to us, so I went up there and I just walked around really grumpily, glaring at people for a little bit. And then I thought, this is not working, gosh. So I went down to the beach and walked around kicking sand, glaring at people grumpily. And lo and behold, notwithstanding Nick being a half-wit, God is really kind. And I feel spoke to us about some things. And so we had some goals, and we have a family kind of a rule of life. It's on our wall, and our mission. But this is sort of getting down to more granular things, like what's the next 1 year and 2.5 years going to look like. And so I've got there's spiritual goals, and there's personal relational goals, and there's vocational ones, and then there's financial ones. And anyway, I won't bore you with the whole thing, but under the vocational ones, the two that I felt God spoke to me about first was one, the role that I was in. I'm still a pastor, but I've also launched a few non-profit things and whatnot. But that I felt God say, before the year is out, you will have found someone to replace you in a key role and another sort of half a key role, let's say that. And also that V and you would be back again shepherding in a local church, which we love to do. We love to do it together. Anyway, I'm not kidding. Within, I think it was 2 days, this guy here, he's a good chap. I know he's also a monstrous pain in the neck. This guy sometimes, right? Within 2 days, Stephen rang me and said, "Hey Nick, we have a great pastor, and Mike has been such a blessing here. He really is, and Teresa's a real blessing here, He said, and then moving back to Sydney, there's, some things going on in their family and so on and so forth. And I want to see if you and V would consider coming out. And I said, mate, I can't even have an initial conversation about this. And I hung up the phone. I said, ring back in a week. I hung up the phone. Just because of the level of disruption for us as a family, There's a lot going on with church things and some non-profit things, and in our home, Noah and we've got 6 young men living in the upstairs of our home. I think I mentioned to you guys before. And also, moving across the puddle, we otherwise know as the Pacific, and so on and so forth. Anyway, he, like I said, pain in the neck. He calls back after a week and says, hey, and I said, okay, let's talk about it. And went into a time of praying about it. I said 100 seconds, I lied. Anyway, I kind of feel like the kid who's been dragged by his, back of his shirt by the Lord. V has been amazing in this process of our discerning to come here. My kids have been amazing. V across the table over a date said to me, honey, we need to go, even if we go with the shirts on our backs, even if we go back to financial 0 point, we need to go. And it might be, but we'll have a shirt. And relational 0 point, and it's starting again. And we lead relationally. Everything about the way we lead, it's relational. It takes time to build that trust. I know that. We're willing to do that, but it does take time, right? So she's been amazing. My kids have been amazing. Mo, when we told him, he sat there and thought about it. And God had been speaking to him. I don't want to steal your story, son, but he said, he said, you know, if God's telling us to go, we ought to go. And let me just say, I want to honour him. Because for a 16-year-old guy who is really, you know, pretty proficient athlete, he's pretty well known where he is, to have that attitude, I'm like, gosh, we have some 20 and 30 and 40-year-old men and women with that attitude, you know. And Tino's been amazing. The guys upstairs are praying for us and all. Me, not so much. I've been the kid who's digging my heels in, like, God's dragging us. And it came to a head, and here's where I'm going to end this short story. So I was praying to the Lord about it, and I had honestly, I felt I had a vision, not like in a John Book of Revelation movie before my eyes, but honestly a sense of, I really do sense that this is what happened. And I was praying to God, and it was the Father, and he said one thing, then I said one thing, and then he just looked at me. That's how the scene went, as it were. And he said to me, son, I've told you to go. And that's what he said. And what I said to him was, I said, Father, but you know what? I've just bought an F-150. I wanted to get an F-150 forever. I've just bought an F-150. We've just got a hot water system. We had, for 2 years, we didn't have hot showers because it's a long story, but it was too small, and all these guys, you know. After 2 years, I'm having hot showers. And thirdly, you know when you're building up an argument and you're just getting to a crescendo of awesomeness in your argument, you know? I said,
Objection.
Objection. It's just don't. And, you know, and the final thing that I said was, and I finally got me an oven, because for 18 months our oven broke, but we've been using the barbecue, you know. And you know when you're like, and the oven, you know, and I'm like, you know, when you bring it to the crescendo or whatever. And so God had said that, I'd said that, and then he just looked at me. And it was like a father's gaze of like just such deep love, and also a little bit, I don't think I'm making this up, a little bit of like bemusement. Like, you know, when your kids and you just go, oh son, you know, you crazy bullfed, you know. And anyway, so I said, all right, okay. And we said yes, and so here we are.
So I'll just close in prayer. Probably the thing I really like you to grab hold of tonight is, we talked about at the start the goodness of God, but God is at work orchestrating the whole thing. But it didn't start 3 months ago or 6 months ago. It probably started 5, 10 years ago, whatever the number was. But our journey, and you guys know, and I've told you this, Nick and I are mates, and we've had, you know, we've done life together and had a relationship prior to him coming on the scene here. But 4 years ago, when Nick was here for, Nick and Evie and the kids for that matter, were here for Nick's dad's funeral. And we were during COVID at that time, weren't we? Yeah, so it was lockdowns and a whole deal going on. God started this journey then. And as you know, we had come to the place where, as a leadership of the church, we had felt Nick and Bea were going to replace Tim and Donna, you know, at that stage. And these guys are on board for that in principle, and we're going home to think about it and pray about it. And then, probably still your story, mate, but you know, Nick got on the plane and he just felt very clear that God said, not now, not yet. And I think I joked with you and said, all I heard was no and never. And kind of closed the book on that one. But, you know, God is at work, and he's positioning, and he's, you know, putting things in place because he knows what the future is going to hold. And that's for Mike and Teresa as well. You know, like these guys have, you know, they were here for life. You know, like they felt this is where they were meant to be. But God had changed that, and in many ways have played such an instrumental transitional role. And now we look back on it. You know, there's been this 3 year transition, 3 and a bit years of transition, which these guys have helped prepare us, but also prepare the ground for Nick and Lee to now come and their family to walk in. So let's not lose sight of the goodness of God and what He does and how He's doing these things and making them work and pulling them together. And not now, not yet. Change. And God is faithful to His word. So, Mike, did you want to...
Yeah, I've got 3 stories I wanted to just...
Can I just say, getting to know this guy has been such a blessing. Because we'd heard of each other but didn't know each other before, you know, this whole process. Kind of feel like I've gained a mate for life. It's been so great.
Yeah, it's been good fun. And just before I ask the question I was going to ask, because I said I've got 3 stories, but it's been a real joy to meet someone who has such a love for people. When you, and I've shared this, I think, at another event we had, I think when you guys were on video here, we were chatting about whether you should come. I mentioned that when you care about a community, then you think, all right, who's going to come in and who's going to lead and sort of shepherd and guide? And, you know, I've worked with this team and I love these people. You feel super protective.
Yeah.
And it's a funny, like, emotion because you're like, yeah, you know, and you got to let go. But when I saw the way you guys instantly related to people, there was just this overwhelming just peace. And I just went, oh, that's really, really good. And I've felt it and experienced it, and so many people here already have. And, you know, even the new guy who might be coming to the church from the cafe, and all the other cafes that you've been to, it's Stephen and all those owners.
We just make sure at lunches are like 3 hours, and then we'll actually get to talk for half an hour about the things we're meant to.
I actually said to Teresa, I said, yeah, if you want to have a meeting with Nick, you've got to go somewhere where no one is, because you don't get to actually have your proper meeting out, because he just leads someone to Jesus. Anyway, you're going to be coming on team here with V, and now this is not unique or new to this church. Teresa and I have seen ourselves as lead pastors here, but initially I was on full-time staff, and Teresa had other work, and then she came on a little down the track as the children's pastor. And that's been a slightly different dynamic for us. You guys are going to be on together as lead pastors, you full-time, V part-time. Do you want to just share with us, what does that look like in your minds? How do you see that working? Is V going to be kind of like your boss?
Yeah, love it. It's a great question. And, you know, so back in the 80s, in Western Australia, it used to be illegal to trade on Sundays. It's changed now. But this bright spark came up with this idea. He was selling, it was, you know, certain items you weren't allowed to sell. And he was a piano salesman. And so you'd go into his store and you weren't allowed to buy a piano on Sunday. But if you wanted, you could buy a novel, you know, for $20,000 and you'd throw in a piano. Anyway, I don't know why I just thought of that, but it's kind of like, guys, V really is, you'll get to know it. She really is the smart and the kind one. I'm the guy, I can lift around boxes and do some things, you know. But she's an extraordinary leader and actually quite a sought after speaker and a worshipper. She, you know, so that's really, it's great news that, you know, she's coming on here, and you get kind of me thrown in on the book, by the way, in that analogy. She's a piano on the book, to be clear on that. So the way that we would see it working, yeah, as we come here, she's going to begin part-time, because we need to get settled, we need to get the kids squared away, and our feet underneath us, we need to find a home. And a car and where to buy toothbrushes and everything you kind of take for granted, you know, where to get good Indian food, all of that. So it'll take us a while to do that. So she's going to really focus on that. I think I would love it if, and we, you know, still going to plan and talk as a team on this. But it would be great if she can be in the preaching roster once a month, say something like that, in accordance with her capacity and you know, what she's going to do towards the role. But also in strategic thinking and shepherding people. She loves mentoring people. She loves identifying and training up and empowering and releasing people into their giftings. She's not threatened by amazing people. Yeah, so she's extraordinary. So in terms of, you know, the kind of, what I'm about to say, I'm not saying it as a throwaway line, but earnestly, like prayer is the thing that is the generator of anything good that's going to come out of any Jesus community, right? So from that epicenter, and then next, let's call it next ring out, waiting on the Lord for leadership and direction, strategic thinking and tactical thinking, and they're different. If you don't know, let's have a coffee or two, yeah. But you know, and also caring for people and building a team. We'll be doing all of that together. Unless we can find someone better, I'll probably begin with more of the preaching and more of the in-house team meetings and things like that over time. As time permits, we'd like that to increase, love for her to do more and more. And our kiddos are getting bigger. I keep turning around and they're bigger. They're kind of like weeds in the garden. You know, if you don't tend to them, just, oh my gosh. So at some point, you know, they'll be fully fledged. And even before then, though, seeing her step into more of that. But yeah, we've done a lot of co-leadership. So in Christian Surfers and with the Bible College, we co-founded the Bible College. And I'm a real fan of team leadership. I'm not in like I don't want to sound super cynical or negative. I'm wary, let me say it, I'm wary of single person leadership. Especially I'm wary of single person leadership where they operate in the vacuum and they don't have others holding their hands to the fire on matters of integrity, matters of purity, you know, all accountability things, even just strategic thinking. You can be in an echo chamber of your own beliefs. So I love the fact that we've got such a great executive team here. And there's really amazing folks here and staff that you've built, mate. So it won't just be V and I. We really do see it as a table of leaders and shepherds, you know, caring for all of us, and we're part of it as well. So yeah, I don't know, does that answer the question, mate?
I think so. You guys are going to arrive at the end of the month on the 28th, 29th from memory. And you're going to start, June, and then a few weeks in, even though you'll be around here on the Sundays, you're going to be kicking off in your role here. Can you share with us when you think about starting off the role, what are you feeling excited about? What are you looking forward to as you kind of get your hands and feet into this?
Well, so much. I mean, I can't say we're extraordinary leaders or anything like that, or have some great, you know, brilliant leadership insights. We love this and can grow together in that and let that be our guide. I'm looking forward to getting to know people. Deeply know people. Like I said before, you know, there's different leadership paradigms. This guy, he's really good on leadership stuff, and I'm gleaning stuff from him already. It's been great. But some folks lead with manipulation. Some folks lead with power. Some folks lead with money. Some folks lead with politics. There's all different ways. V and I, it's all relational, you know. So not leading from the front or the back, but the middle. So getting to know you all, getting to kind of dream and scheme with the team on what we're doing and areas that we should be pressing into the Lord for. You know, we've talked about what would it look like to be seeking the Lord for revival. I know that sounds like a big thing to say right off the bat, but you need to know that that our hearts are absolutely for renewal of our hearts here at Goodlife. But that does not even come close to exhausting our kind of vision and hearts for where God can take things here on the sunny coast, in Queensland, in Australia. We've never had a revival. What would that look like? We've already been talking with some pastor mates about that. It all begins relationally, leading from the middle, getting to know folks on team, for them to realise what V's many strengths are, what my many weaknesses are, to work out how to, amplify the former and to, delimit and augment the latter, So looking forward to that. Looking forward to worshipping with you. Looking forward to, this will sound super dorky, thinking through where we're going to go together in the Word, in the next 12, 18 months. What are we going to do? How are we going to dig in on that? I'm fascinated by it. I love it. And like I said, very similar spirit to North Coast Calvary, the kind of the missional bent of Goodlife, that everything we do exists for the good of those who are not our members. They're not here tonight. I love that. I want to expand that. I want to grow that, not because it's an ego thing. I hope it's not because of that. I feel kind of old enough that I've had a lot of that stuff kicked out of me in ministry, But because every person who comes to know Jesus, who comes to be part of a community, their life can change for the better. I mean, he did it with me. He's done it. I bet he's done it with you. So I want to see that. So yeah, so much stuff. I'm not looking forward to working out where to buy milk, where to get a house, where to serve. All those things that take time, but God will be gracious on that. I'll end with this. There's a difference, a friend of mine, a real wise friend of mine, used to run Foursquare churches for South America. He talked about the difference with me with direct, indirect, and strategic leadership. And albeit they're kind of it's a cumulative thing, Direct leadership is, so Mike is leading me, that's direct, and mentoring. V and I really do love that, no question. And then there's indirect leadership where you're caring for someone. So if he's leading me and then I in turn am leading, so Mike in that sense is indirectly leading Stephen. And love them both. Probably even more than being with someone as they pray to accept Jesus. I love being with someone who I've done that with as they do that with someone else. It's wild. It's super wonderful. But strategic leadership, is honestly what I feel the main thing is that God's made me for. And like I said, it's kind of cumulative, But this mate of mine described it as, if you've got a freeway and there's a fender bender on the freeway, there's direct, and that's the car that hit the car. So both of our, fenders are bent. The bumpers are bent. And then there's indirect. It was funny because it's quite a negative image now I think about it. But there's the indirect, those who are affected, all the guys who are stuck behind them and now are late to work or whatnot. He said, but who no one ever really thinks about? And this is the analogy, the analog rather, for strategic leadership. He said it's the person who designed the freeway. You never think about that person. But both in precluding the crashes from happening in the first place because the curves are nice and whatever, or allowing for emergency lanes and so on. In the kingdom, I love that. I love all of those, but I really love that one. So, hopefully over time getting to do some of that.
It's good. Thank you, Stephen.
Cool. Well, just a couple of practical ones, just in terms of timeline. So you guys are all across that. I think Mike made reference to the 28th, 29th, which is of June, when these guys will be here. That'll be their first Sunday. But prior to that, 15th will be Mike and Teresa's last Sunday here at Goodlife in June. And so we'll have a special time at that gathering. Then these guys come in on that 28th, 29th, but then they don't want to work too hard too soon and are going on holidays for a week after that. They're going to Christian Surfers International Conference is happening, which is already locked in. So they'll be here for a week, and then they head over to the Christian Surfers International Conference, which happens once every 3 years.
And I apologise, friends. So V and I, we've resigned from all other boards and all other things that we're involved with the one exception of we, serving on the Christian Surfers International Board, and they have a triennial conference. It's once every 3 years. It just so happened it's a week after we get here, and I'm like, gosh, the timing's dreadful. But then also for our kiddos, we have promised them, a holiday, and for them, they get to go there and hang out with some really cool people. So we're going to be here. We won't miss a Sunday, but there will be 5 days where if you come in to say hello and have a coffee, I won't be here and V won't be here.
I'm glad you don't miss Sunday, mate. That's good.
Excellent.
Just to clarify, we're incredibly supportive of these kinds of endeavours as well, because we think by releasing Nic and V and the family to be part of bigger picture kingdom things, we actually benefit from that as well. I think it's very easy for us to become very short-sighted and look at everything through the lens of the here and now and what's right before us. But I think one of the things we've been talking around is what's it look like to have a global vision, and be really proactive in that. And Nic is incredibly connected. I'm sure we're going to see, speakers and different things like that that will be a blessing to us over the years as well. In that front. So the official start date is the 15th of July. Is sort of when they'll be on deck. And then we'll go from there. We will then have a commissioning service on the 20th, I think. Yep. So the 20th will kind of be the special moment for us as a community to celebrate these guys coming on the team in that.
And mate, could I just jump in for a second? So I hesitate to ask, but I kind of would like it if you would all be okay with being co-opted into helping us host that, because there's quite a few folks who are going to be coming into town for that, the 20th of July, that is. Going to have a party here, I'm told, so we'll see how that goes.
No pressure.
And so there's a bunch of guys coming up from Sydney and some perhaps from Melbourne and Perth, and there's also some folks coming over from San Diego, including Mark Foreman, who's a dear friend and mentor, and was the senior pastor for all of our time there in San Diego. Phenomenal leader in the kingdom. So there will be, we'd love it if, so when they're all here, you might look around and say, gosh, I don't know anyone in the row, and just reach out to them and love them, because it'll be, coming up.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting and special time. Any questions you guys may have? We've probably got about 10 minutes, so be a good opportunity to ask those things, and we can got a couple of things just to wrap up.
Just no 3-part stories. Just, like in your question. Down here. You may have to stand up and speak up just so because these won't reach.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Thank you so much, that was fantastic. I'm just wondering if Noah and his mates upstairs are also coming over.
Oh, thank you for asking. We haven't reached the end of our trip here together yet, but at some point I'm going to put that to him. And the 6 young men, it's been great on this trip. We've amongst other things, we've been doing some studies together, and the memory verse we've got for this trip is out of Hosea 10, where it says, and because V and I have been feeling it's on our hearts for coming here to Goodlife, but it's sow for yourselves righteousness and reap the fruit of unfailing love, and break up the unplowed ground. I can see your lips moving. For it's time to seek the Lord until He comes and showers righteousness on you. So, in short, it is time for Noah to seek the Lord, and we'll see where He comes out. But him and a lot of other folks in where we are have been invited to come out and be part of it. Oh, Stephen just asked for me to share 3 stories about. Thanks, mate. I'll take. No. So Launchpad. So the Launchpad. It's the upstairs of our home. We've got this gigantic house. When we bought it 3 years ago, it was kind of, I call it bulldozer -1 because it really needed a bulldozer, but at the time I didn't do it. And so we have these 6 young guys who are there, and they're amazing young men. I mean, you please come and meet Noah. They're just extraordinary young men. They all live there, and they have cheaper rent. The deal is though that they get to donate a day a week to Christian mission. So Noah's an intern at our church with the youth, and he also does some Christian service things, and they live according to a covenant of purity that they wrote. It's actually amazing. It's really amazing. And they have a mentor that they have nominated that we've agreed is a great fit, and they're signed off pastorally by me or another pastor. And so there's just like this kingdom force for good. V right now, we're renovating the downstairs part because we thought it'd be a good idea to move to the other side of the world and renovate all at the same time, and so that there can be a space for young women as well. But it's really the heart behind it is to both identify, train up, live with, do life with, and for an introvert, it's tough. It's good. It's tough and good at the same time. But to identify, empower, equip, release a bunch of young people.
Serious question. Did the 6 guys up top, how do they feel about the 6 women that are going to be coming in down?
Well, we like at youth camps, there's pink and there's blue and there's never purple. There shall be no purple. No, I mean they're good guys. And to be honest with you, there's often so many folks around anyway, doing worship nights or around we've got like a fire pit and there's a jacuzzi there, and but again, no purple. And so
Now I want to see the code.
yeah, it's good. It's actually really good.
It's down the back. Dylan.
Thank you. Yeah, this is really a question just about inclusivity. And it's a question that affects a lot of denominations and a lot of churches, especially across New South Wales and in Queensland. But where do you stand theologically just in regards to NRL versus AFL? Because Goodlife is pretty much an AFL church.
And that's why I'm moving on.
Dylan, I love it. I think I won't catch up with you. I think we're probably going to be mates. It was just impeccable timing. So here's the thing.
My heart was racing then.
Mike, what do you think?
We're going to get out of business.
Mate?
So I grew up in Western Australia, so it's all there. It's all about footy, right? As in AFL, And so everyone grows up playing AFL. I did. I also grew up playing rugby, and you can do the both. My son plays American football and rugby, and he surfs, and Tino's played rugby, and you can do more than one thing at once. I'm pretty sure you can, because I'm blinking, and my heart, I hope, is still beating. So here's the truth. I started this. I don't know if you can see that. I've got a Maroons thing here on my phone because I spent so much time down in Sydney, and the things that divide. Oh my gosh. My answer is both.
It's just a boundary, that's what it is.
Yeah. Circle of trust. Oh, yes. So let's do both. Let's throw great parties for both. Let's throw watch parties for both.
Any other very clever questions? Down the back? Or was that a stretch?
Mike Bentley here, and welcome. Just had a question. Well, in the past, like Goodlife's had a long history of connections with other churches in the community, and I guess when you talked about revival, I thought about a big picture of all of the churches, because it's quite a Bible belt, and I just kind of wanted to highlight that, I don't know, or even just put it out there, that there might be a bit more cohesiveness in the churches somehow, and that you might be able to bring it together. So,
Thank you. Sorry, what was your name?
Mac.
May? Oh, Mac. Oh, thank you, Mac. I love the question, and I actually love the topic. You need to know I'm nuts about unity, not uniformity. There's diversity and breadth, right? But I'm nuts about getting churches working together. I think when we don't, I think our witness is vitiated, is like undermined to the world. I mean, Jesus talked about that in John 17. May they be brought to complete unity, that the world may know that you sent me. And so I am, and already that's already started. God's been really great over the perhaps not more than a dozen, but a good number of conversations with pastors saying, look, I'm here, or we're not here yet, but we're going to be here. What's going on? And certainly V and I over the years have that's been our heart. And I want to say this. I did it where we last were, and I'm going to do it here as well. I'm going to go through and meet with, and especially if you guys know folks, I know a pastor there, no one there, and go and see them and so on. I'll do it. Relational connections are the best. But to meet with them and say, hey, we're for you. We're not threatened by you. We want to see things thrive. Because I look around and there's some great churches up here, absolutely. But there's also hundreds of thousands of people who don't yet know Jesus. And so let's get about it. I don't want to be stealing sheep from each other and mucking around, my gosh, like God's got more in store for us. So yes, you'll probably, to the point your ears bleed, find out that we're very much fans of the big, we call it the Big C Church. Yeah. Does that answer your question, mate? Right.
Thanks. It's an interesting time for you to be coming when this church, which has grown up with a particular kind of administration and leadership style, which is a little different than in many places. But that's also in transition. We've been in meetings about this transition. How are you feeling about some of this? Because you're going to walk right into the beginnings of it, but not have much say in where it's got to, or are you?
Oh, I've got it. And it was Tom, you said, is that right? Oh, Colin. Sorry, I misheard him. Colin, thanks. That's a great question. My answer is I love that stuff. Like I don't want to sound too dorky, but both, by background and training and heart, I love doing that stuff well because it ties into strategic leadership stuff. But working out the sort of species of legal entity that we have and ways that can be maximised for kingdom impact, I get jazzed on that stuff. I also look forward to doing, because I think that building team can happen. There's lots of things that build team. I think nothing builds team as well as having a shared endeavour. And so, corralling folks on that, getting, think tanks happening on that, and coming out with least worst outcomes, this side of eternity. I think we never get anything perfect. But working together on that stuff, I'm champing at the bit, actually. Yeah.
Sorry, you on. I was just going to mention, so Nick has been part of some of the executive meetings and discussions, and he will be part of the transition. For anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, but when we had the AGM meeting and special meeting in transitioning from being an unincorporated association to a company limited by guarantee, and also then setting up a public benevolent organisation for Lifehouse, etc. So we're in that journey. It's a big journey. It's a big process. It's, you know, fresh constitutions and all those different things like that. So Nick will be part of that and the continuation of that, because it doesn't happen overnight. But it will happen, as they say. So, yes. So I just wanted to clarify he's going to be part of that journey.
And to segue that back to Dylan, where I'm from, transition means something else. So, yeah, but if we're talking about entities, I'm jazzed.
And probably just to reinforce that, we met exec yesterday, and we've kind of paused the process until Nick is on board on deck. So there's a couple of little things that we'll do to kind of no-brainers, because they have to happen anyway. But as Mike said, the constitution, that sort of stuff, we'll work on that together. Cool. I'll probably bring it to a bit of a wrap. Probably two things I want to just finish off with, and Mike, probably just going to put you on the spot here as well. Can you maybe just give a bit of an update from your perspective of how you guys are journeying at the moment, in terms of, you know, you've got a pretty looming date coming up. You know, how's that feeling? How are things coming together for you guys?
Yeah. 15th of June, Sunday 15th of June is our last day. How does it feel? The plans are coming together. We're feeling very grateful. We're feeling like the Lord is opening doors and like there's provision, and so we're feeling a sense of excitement for the future. We're not there, so we can't see everything yet. It's that sense of like you want to kind of go, I don't know how this is all going to look on the ground just yet, but we're feeling really peaceful about that. Our kids have also been amazing in this journey and process. This last weekend, Easter, was, and the Sunday before, each of the services were just amazing, and I can't help but genuinely express, I was in each of those worship times thinking, we're really doing this? And it's not because I'm actually questioning whether we're meant to do what we're meant to do. It's the genuine feeling of when you love a community and you journey with people and you know their stories, and you know, you've laughed with people and cried with people and been at the funerals and the weddings and all the things that you do, and then you're part of this thing that's just, it's feeling dynamic and alive, and there's a sense of excitement in the place, and the worship and singing on the weekend, I was just like, this isn't this thing. And then I'm like, we're going to start all over again? You know, and so I was like, yeah, we're going to do that, but it also feels like it's a sadness, there's a grief in that. But it's something that we hold as precious, because as people say, the measure of the level of the grief that you had is often reflective of the measure of the love that you have for what is lost. And so that's how we feel. So yeah, we're feeling really grateful. We're feeling very loved and very supported by the community here. Everyone's been incredibly kind and gracious to us. And I also feel very humbled, and we mentioned this yesterday at the exec meeting, that the way this has unfolded with Nick and V is just a great provision, and it lifted a weight off me from those initial conversations, and like, oh man, you know, you feel like a door's opening for you, but you're like, well, what are you doing here? And to see how this is unfolding is actually really encouraging.
Good. And Nick, maybe last two words. Would there be, if you were to charge us as a community of faith with anything between now and, you know, say the next 3 months, what would you be encouraging us in, and how can we be praying for you guys, or, you know, or whatever it might be? How do we prepare ourselves for what we're walking into? Good way.
Pray hard.
We there? Go on, you got
Well, it's a special dispensation. Our version of what Mike and Teresa and Sarai and Jacob are going through, for sure. There's a lot of grief. V and I call it the sad glad. You know, we're so glad and over the moon about coming here and being with everyone and seeing God do some things. The word we keep getting is adventure, you know, as a family and for us all here. So we're very glad about that. We're also sad. There's a lot of folks who, you know, we've done a lot of life with and seen some amazing things happen with over there. And then there's just all the logistical stuff, you know. We've got 3 pets. And yeah, well, you see, those of you go, oh, you're thinking like you do the reasonable thing and leave them there. Because, you know, whilst you're not a heartless person, you're also someone who thinks it would, you know, that's what we should do. But V, on the other hand, leaves nobody behind. And so we have, you know, a black Labrador and 2 cats, which are barn cats, which again, if someone was less inclined towards bringing them across 7,126 miles, I checked, that you would think they would be happy in a barn in San Diego. So, you know, stuff like that, like, you know, logistical things. And yeah, please pray for us.
Absolutely will. Hey, again, thank you for coming out tonight, and I hope it has just helped give you a bit better feel for Nic's heart and V's. That they're an amazing couple.
She does send her love. She's really sad not to be here today with everyone.
Yeah, sure. And you know, we are going to be incredibly blessed. And as I said at the start, God has been orchestrating this from well before we even knew it was on the horizon, and we can take confidence in that. You know, and for us as an executive team, along with Nic and V, we're incredibly excited about the future and what God is doing and what God is going to do, both here at Goodlife and also in the Shire. For these guys. And I think the beauty of you know, things like this happen is we've kind of got a new relative in the family. You know, it'll be another church down south that carries some of the DNA and heart of Goodlife and what it is. So that's pretty cool. And it comes another church from San Diego that you know, that we're in, you know, relationship with as well. So that's pretty cool. Mike, would you maybe like to pray for us?
How about you stand up, because I want us to pray for. There's a big chance we might not be able to be part of the 20th of July, and so in many ways, this is the physical chance for us to pass the baton. And Teresa, sorry. Teresa wanted to be here, but needed to be home with our little boy who's at school on tomorrow. But it's an incredible honour to be able to hand it back on to you guys and to be able to say, I don't have any question in my heart whatsoever that you will love this community faithfully and that you will serve them and lead them in the way of Jesus. And the emotion is because, as we said before, you love a community, and yeah, got a lot of respect for you and the conversations we've had and where we've gone and how deep we've gone in the time that we've had is pretty amazing. So I feel it's an honour to be able to pray for you and to be able to hand this on and say, may the best days be ahead. Yeah. So let's pray together as a community. Lord, we stand in your presence. This is a holy ground moment where we acknowledge that you guide us and you lead us in ways that we probably can't even completely understand and appreciate. The mystery of how you work, you guide, you care, you lead, you provide, is beyond our understanding. And so our posture is just one of gratitude, that we get to play any small or big part in seeing your love expressed in what we do. Every person we meet, every person who becomes part of this community, and every person that this community will indirectly reach and love and serve. So Lord, we give you praise and honour first of all. And secondly, we bring the Gilmour family before you. And we say, Lord, as they prepare, Lord, would you go before them? Would you just pour out an amazing sense of peace, that stress would be minimal, and that peace and calm and just a deep sense of joy will be in their hearts, that things are going to work out. Lord, I pray that from the moment they hit the ground here, as they're already experiencing, Lord, they will feel surrounded by a community and a family that will help them, cheer them on, encourage them as they also seek to do the same. Lord, for V and for Evie back home in San Diego, would you just be with them right this moment? May your peace be upon them. For the boys here, these young men, may you strengthen them, may you give them wisdom. May you just put just your peace in their hearts and minds, and may they learn to be able to trust that as they come into this new environment, that you're going to provide for them as they make new friends and find fresh community, without forgetting the great connections they have across the pond. We thank you for how you'll go before them and look after them. So Lord, we surround them with your love and your peace, and we just pray that you will be with them. And Lord, for Nic in particular, who's here in this moment, I pray that he will just rest in the confidence that you have gone before him. You have equipped him. You have given him 3 big epic stories. You have, but really you're doing an amazing fresh story. And so Lord, work in their hearts and minds. May their marriage be better than it's ever been. So life-giving and just feel so free and joyous. And Lord, I pray that through all of the unknowns that are ahead, that they will walk forwards with their hands in your hands, with a smile on their face, trusting that you're guiding them every step of the way. And so, Lord, for this community, I pray, may the best days of loving and serving and expressing the wonderful good news of Christ be before this community. And Lord, may you truly revive the Sunshine Coast in this nation. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.